Racist cop kicks black pregnant woman in the middle of a busy public area, shocking everyone around. The officer, clearly fueled by prejudice, steps toward her with no reason at all. He sneers at her, clearly dismissing her as unimportant, and in a fit of anger and bias, he kicks her in the stomach. The woman stumbles back, holding her belly, gasping in pain, while her eyes widen in disbelief. The bystanders stand frozen, some too shocked to move, others fumbling with their phones, recording the moment, but no one dares to intervene. The officer, assuming he has all the control, laughs, unaware of the storm he's about to unleash. What happens when a police officer crosses the line and harms the wrong person? What if that person isn't who they appear to be? The officer continues his tirade, mocking her, making crude comments, not realizing that this woman is far more important than he could ever imagine. The crowd stands still as she fights back her tears, her composure unbroken, her strength unwavering. But just as the situation seems to reach its peak, a figure emerges from the crowd. Her husband, a billionaire businessman, arrives, having heard about the incident. He's calm, but his eyes are filled with anger. He approaches the officer with a quiet confidence, but his presence is immediately felt by everyone around. You won't believe how her husband, a billionaire, gets his revenge, and how it goes viral. The moment is about to change everything. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments below. The pregnant woman moves through the crowd with a steady stride, her hand resting gently on her growing belly. She's calm, composed, and unwavering, despite the visible discomforts of pregnancy. The crowd moves around her, some glancing her way, but few truly noticing the strength she exudes. The weight of her pregnancy doesn't slow her down, and her posture radiates a quiet strength. She's not just any woman walking through the public space. She is someone who has fought battles, faced hardships, and yet she remains dignified, going about her business as if nothing could shake her. She's alone in this moment, with the bustling crowd unaware of the challenges she's faced or the battles she's fought. Her pregnancy may be difficult, but it's not the hardest thing she's ever endured. There's more to her than what meets the eye, but for now, her identity remains hidden. No one around her knows the significance of her presence, not the people in the crowd, and certainly not the officer who is about to make a fatal mistake. As she walks, her steps measured and purposeful, the officer, stationed nearby, watches her with a hardened gaze. To him, she is nothing more than another target. He's used to wielding his authority over those he perceives as weaker. His eyes narrow as he assesses her, pregnant, black, and alone in the crowd. In his mind, these details tell him everything he needs to know about her. She is someone he can intimidate, someone who will comply without question. This officer is no stranger to prejudice, and his assumptions are based on stereotypes that he's carried with him for years. He thinks she won't stand up for herself. He doesn't anticipate any resistance. After all, why would she? In his eyes, she's just another person who will bend to his will, someone who has no power. He doesn't know who she is or what she is capable of, and he certainly doesn't know the incredible strength she possesses beneath her composed exterior. But his assumptions are wrong, and in the moments to come, everything will change. Little does he know that this woman is far more than he could ever imagine. Her silence, her calmness, it's not weakness. It's the quiet before the storm. It's strength that's been built over years, and he's about to learn that underestimating her will be his biggest mistake. The officer, still watching the woman as she moves through the crowd, spots something that seems off to him, though in truth, it's nothing at all. Perhaps she's standing in a spot he deems inappropriate, or simply moving through an area he thinks she shouldn't be in. To him, It's enough to spark suspicion. It's a small thing, something trivial. But to the officer, it feels significant. He steps forward, his boots making a firm sound against the pavement as he approaches her. "Excuse me," the officer calls out gruffly, his tone carrying the authority he thinks he wields. "What are you doing here? This area is restricted." The woman stops in her tracks and turns to face him, her calm expression not shifting. Her hand rests on her stomach, but she doesn't flinch. She's been through far more difficult situations than this. She responds politely, "I'm just passing through." "I'm not causing any trouble," but the officer doesn't listen. He doesn't care for her calmness, her polite demeanor. In his mind, it's an automatic response from someone who's guilty. He narrows his eyes and steps closer, his voice rising in aggression. "I told you, this area is off limits, and you don't belong here. You're just looking suspicious, standing around like you've got something to hide." She tries to reason with him again, her tone even and unshaken. "I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just here because I'm traveling." But her words fall on deaf ears. The officer is already past the point of reason. In his mind, she's just another person to boss around, another person who he believes should cower in front of his authority. And before she can react further without any warning, the officer raises his leg and delivers a harsh kick to her abdomen. The shock of it hits her instantly. Her body reels back from the impact, and she stumbles slightly, fighting the pain and the shock of what just happened. The crowd around them freezes for a moment. The noise of the public space, once so full of life, now feels eerily quiet. Eyes turn toward the scene, but no one moves in to help. A few people raise their phones, pointing them at the officer and the woman, capturing the moment for all the wrong reasons. Some people stare in disbelief, but the fear of confrontation keeps them from stepping in. The woman, though she's hurt, remains composed. She doesn't cry out. She doesn't shout at the officer. Instead, she stands tall, her gaze unyielding as she faces the officer who's clearly gone too far. But even though the scene is growing chaotic, no one steps in. The officer, too, stands still for a moment, perhaps realizing the magnitude of what he's just done. But still, no apology, no remorse. This small act of violence was meant to intimidate, meant to belittle her, to make her feel small. But in that moment, he's underestimated the woman standing before him. She may be pregnant, but her strength goes far beyond anything he's imagined. The stage is set for the confrontation that will change everything. The officer stands before the woman, his eyes narrowed with judgment, his tone harsh and unforgiving. He continues to shout at her, accusing her of being trouble, demanding she explain herself again and again. "You think you can just walk around here and do whatever you want. Don't think I won't deal with this. I'm not letting you off so easily. You're in the wrong, and you know it." Despite the officer's increasing aggression, the woman maintains a calm exterior. Her heart races, but her face doesn't betray the stress she feels. She's learned not to show weakness. Her eyes never leave his, firm and unwavering. But as the officer continues to berate her, something inside her starts to stir. It's not fear. It's frustration, growing more palpable with every word the officer spits at her. She speaks again, trying her best to keep her voice steady, though it's clear her patience is thinning. "I told you, I'm not doing anything wrong. I don't deserve this. You're making a mistake." But the officer ignores her. His voice only gets louder. "Mistake? Number, you're the one making the mistake by being here. Don't act innocent." His eyes dart around, looking for something else to accuse her of. But it's obvious. He's got nothing but his own assumptions. Around them, the crowd continues to watch. Some people recording the incident on their phones, their cameras capturing every word, every second. No one moves to help, but the tension in the air is thick. Some are too scared to intervene, unsure of how the officer might react. Others are just too uncomfortable, wanting to avoid getting involved in a scene that's quickly spiraling out of control. The woman's frustration grows as she watches them, feeling the weight of being watched and judged by strangers, while the officer relentlessly mocks her. Her breath quickens, but she doesn't shout back. She doesn't lash out. Instead, she stands tall, shoulders squared, her posture unwavering. She speaks again, but this time there's a hardness to her voice, a steel that wasn't there before. "I'm asking you again to stop this. You don't have the right to treat me like this." The officer, still not listening, presses on. "You think you're too good for this? Think you can just walk around and ignore the rules? You should be thanking me for not arresting you right now." The woman's eyes narrow slightly. She's had enough. It's clear that the situation is escalating, and it's no longer just about what's happening between them. It's about the world that's watching. Every word from the officer feels like another insult, not just to her, but to everyone around. They are witnessing something unjust, but so far, no one is stepping in. The woman's frustration shows now, but her composure remains. She understands the weight of this moment. As the officer keeps pushing, she knows this won't be over until someone stands up, not just for her, but for what is right. As the officer continues to rant and escalate the situation, a car pulls up to the scene, tires screeching slightly as it halts in front of the crowd. The woman, still standing firm, catches a glimpse of the car out of the corner of her eye. Her eyes widen slightly, but she remains composed. Moments later, the door to the car opens, and a tall man steps out. His suit is sharp, and there's an aura of authority around him. He walks toward the officer and the woman with purpose, his strides confident, as if he already knows what's unfolding. The officer notices the new arrival but doesn't think much of it, continuing his verbal tirade. But as the man approaches, his demeanor changes. His calm, assured presence immediately shifts the energy in the air. "What's going on here?" the man asks, his voice steady and commanding. The officer turns toward him, his expression still full of arrogance, but there's a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. "It's none of your business, sir," the officer sneers. "I'm handling this situation. This woman is causing trouble, and I'm taking care of it." The man's eyes narrow, his gaze unflinching. "Actually, it is my business," he replies coolly, stepping closer to the officer, "and I think it's time someone held you accountable for your actions." The officer's face shifts, a flicker of discomfort now visible. He looks at the man standing in front of him, but there's something in his calm and measured tone that makes the officer pause. The man is not just another passerby. There's power in his voice. The woman looks up, recognizing him immediately. Her husband, the man she's been married to for years, the billionaire businessman whose name carries weight, even in the circles the officer is used to moving in. She's known the type of man he is, but seeing the officer's sudden hesitation makes her smile just slightly. "You don't know who you're dealing with," the officer mutters under his breath, but he knows he's losing control. The man now speaks again, this time with an even firmer edge to his voice. "I know exactly who you are, and I know what you've done. Your behavior is unacceptable, and you will be held accountable for it. I suggest you step aside before this gets worse for you." The officer's arrogance begins to crumble as the man's words hit hard. He stammers, looking between the woman, her husband, and the growing crowd. The weight of the situation begins to dawn on him. This isn't just a random passerby. This is a man of power, someone who can make his life very difficult if he chooses. "You don't want to mess with me," the officer mutters, but it's no longer with the same bravado he had earlier. His hands shake just a little as he takes a step back. The man's voice cuts through the tension. "This isn't a threat. This is a promise. You will pay for your actions. And I'll make sure that the right people hear about what happened here." The officer stands frozen for a moment, realizing the gravity of his mistake. The man isn't just anyone. He's someone far more influential than the officer could have ever imagined. The fear starts to creep in, and for the first time during this confrontation, the officer realizes he's no longer in control. The woman stands tall, her gaze unwavering as she watches the officer scramble to regain his composure. Her husband, by her side, doesn't hesitate to take action. With a single phone call, the wheels of justice begin to turn. Within hours, the officer is called in for a meeting. The couple's legal team, already working quickly, ensures that an investigation is opened. The officer, once brimming with arrogant confidence, now sits in front of superiors who are questioning his actions. His suspension is immediate, an action that sends shockwaves through his department and beyond. The woman, though shaken by the ordeal, remains composed. Her husband, now with full control of the situation, ensures that the officer is not only suspended, but also that he faces legal consequences for his behavior. The police department's higher-ups are under immense pressure to act, and the officer's misdeeds will not be swept under the rug. "I won't let this go," the woman tells the officers overseeing the investigation. "This isn't just about one officer's actions. This is about respect, dignity, and accountability. No one is above the law, not him, and not anyone else." Her words are a firm declaration. The officer, once unchallenged in his power, is now just a man facing the full weight of the consequences. The investigation into his conduct is set to expand as the public outcry continues to grow. This will not be the last time the officer faces scrutiny. The woman's dignity shines through in the aftermath. She is not just a victim. She is a force to be reckoned with. With the unwavering support of her husband, she leads the charge for justice, sending a clear message that actions like those of the officer will not be tolerated. The couple has ensured that the officer will be held accountable in every way possible. The husband, while respecting his wife's strength, makes it abundantly clear to anyone listening that no one, whether they're an officer of the law or anyone else, is above the law. No one, no matter their position, has the right to treat another person like this. Not today, not ever. As the couple walks away from the scene, the officer's humiliation is palpable. The public, too, takes notice. The situation serves as a reminder to all that power should never be abused, and that justice is not negotiable. The officer may have thought he could walk away unscathed, but now he faces the reality of his own actions and the repercussions that follow. The incident quickly goes viral, igniting a storm of outrage on social media. The video of the officer's abusive behavior spreads across every platform, with thousands, then millions of people sharing their disbelief and anger. The video shows a powerful, yet harrowing, glimpse of how unchecked authority and racial prejudice can destroy lives in a matter of seconds. News outlets all around the world seize on the story, with headlines blaring about the officer's unjustifiable actions and the widespread mistreatment of black individuals, particularly black women. Public reaction is swift, with citizens across the globe expressing their disgust at the officer's behavior. Online forums, social media posts, and news segments fill with discussions about police misconduct, racism, and accountability. People of all ages, races, and backgrounds come together, condemning the officer's blatant abuse of power. The widespread shock and anger reverberate through every corner of society, prompting many to call for immediate consequences for the officer. The woman and her husband, now at the center of this media storm, feel an immense responsibility to speak out. As the public continues to watch closely, they use their platform to advocate for justice. This wasn't just an attack on me, or my baby, or my family. This is a systemic issue that has been hurting Black individuals, women, and marginalized groups for far too long. The woman says during a live interview with a top news channel, "We will not let this go unnoticed. We will not let this be swept under the rug." Her husband, a powerful and influential businessman, joins her in the call for action. With his wealth and influence, he stands firmly by her side, supporting her mission. He urges people everywhere to take action, to be vocal, and to push for systemic changes. This officer's actions are a reflection of a much deeper problem in society, he declares in his own interview. The fact that a pregnant woman, a human being, could be treated this way is unconscionable. This isn't just about one person. This is about a culture that needs to change. In the days that follow, the couple's message resonates across the globe. More and more people rally behind them, signing petitions, sharing stories, and organizing protests. Their calls for police reform gain traction, with a growing movement emerging in cities worldwide. Public demonstrations are held to demand justice and reform, with signs reading "Justice for All" and "No More Abuse of Power." The couple's unwavering stance against injustice inspires many to take a stand in their own communities. This event becomes a watershed moment in the fight for equality and respect for marginalized groups. The woman's strength, grace, and determination in the face of this assault give others the courage to stand up for their own rights. Through their advocacy, the couple shines a light on the everyday racism and abuse that people from all backgrounds experience, specifically Black women, and how often those in positions of power get away with it. The story spreads across global news outlets, where celebrities, politicians, and activists alike lend their voices in support of the couple's cause. This support amplifies the message that the status quo cannot continue, that it's time for real change. Discussions about police accountability, racial profiling, and inequality are more intense than ever. This event is no longer just a viral incident. It has become the catalyst for a much-needed revolution in policing and societal norms. The woman, with her courage and poise, becomes a symbol of resistance against racial injustice, using her status and platform to push for meaningful reform. The husband's wealth and influence, combined with his public advocacy, play a key role in ensuring that this incident leads to tangible change. They advocate for stronger measures to hold police officers accountable and for stricter policies against racial profiling. As the public demands justice, the couple remains steadfast in their pursuit of systemic change, focusing on creating a world where such abuse of power is no longer tolerated. The viral nature of the incident, combined with the couple's passionate advocacy, ignites a global movement. Activists rally together, communities stand united, and the voices of those who have been oppressed for too long echo louder than ever. The incident serves as a defining moment in the fight for racial justice, equality, and police reform. As the dust settles and the noise surrounding the incident begins to die down, The story concludes with a powerful message about the importance of respect, dignity, and standing up for what is right. What began as a shocking moment of racial injustice has blossomed into a full-scale movement for change, reminding everyone that no matter who we are, we all deserve to be treated with basic decency. The lesson is clear. No one should be mistreated based on their race, background, or societal status. Every human being, regardless of their identity or appearance, deserves to be respected and valued. The story serves as a stark reminder that the color of someone's skin or their position in society should never determine how they are treated. The woman's strength, poise, and refusal to back down from the officer's abuse bring this truth to light. The events also highlight the importance of accountability, no matter who the perpetrator is. The officer's actions were unjustifiable, but it wasn't just about the individual's wrongdoings. It's about a systemic problem that allows abuse of power to flourish unchecked. The officer's position of authority couldn't shield him from the consequences of his actions. Whether you're a police officer, a politician, or an everyday citizen, everyone must be held accountable for their actions, especially when those actions cause harm to others. The story also teaches the value of standing up for oneself, particularly in the face of injustice. The woman's calm strength and refusal to let the officer's behavior slide sent a clear message. When you see something wrong, you must stand up for what is right. Even when the odds seem stacked against you, the act of speaking out can make a difference, and when one voice rises, it often sparks others to join in and stand strong, making collective action a powerful force for change. The viral story of the woman's experience, paired with her husband's strong leadership, ignited discussions and called attention to police misconduct, racial profiling, and the abuse of power. The woman's ability to maintain her dignity in the face of adversity inspired others around the world to follow her lead. In the end, this story proves that when we stand up together, we have the power to bring about change, and that the fight for justice is one we must never stop pursuing.